Get ready with this.
All right. Well, that was another great interview. I really enjoyed that. Marsha is a dynamite lady, very visible. I see her at a lot of conferences, a lot of events. I presented, like I mentioned, for them as well. I mean, if you want to be in an industry where there's a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of positiveness, oh my gosh, go to a conference. You will see hospitality and tourism conferences are like the best. What I'm finding also when we're talking about themes, Jeremy, is a lot of organizations have job postings, and so students really need to take advantage of what is already available within their organization. And so you can see that the proactiveness they're trying to put out there is just connecting, the gap between students and the organization. So that's why we're having this show today. Thank goodness from Green Valley State University, because that's the reason why we're here today.
You're right. A lot of job opportunities being posted, but also just a tidbit of just a tip for the candidates out there, because a lot of the candidates out there think that just clicking a link is enough, and it's not.
No.
That's why we hear a lot about the dreadful ghosting word. Now, there are obvious times if you do go above and beyond and call and email and direct message them, that's unacceptable. That's ghosting. But if you just click apply, I don't consider that ghosting. You know how many resumes are popping up in my feed right now as I speak to you? Too many. All right. Like, we get bombarded, and I have multiple requisitions, and these internal recruiters have God knows how many requisitions of job searches going on. And I'm not trying to soften, the issue of not hearing back from a job click, but you have to put that in perspective. So go outside of just clicking and find them on LinkedIn. Marsha just said you reach out to her. All these keynotes are saying you can reach out to them. They are reachable. Like, they're gonna reply to you so fast as a student. Like, I would be, if they're active on social media, if they're active on LinkedIn, they will reply. And if they miss it, sometimes they get a lot of DMs. Don't be nervous about doing one more message, like, hi, just checking back. I sent you a message, wanted to see if you saw it. That's okay too. You're not overstepping. So that would be a tip, is just be, that's not aggressive. I wouldn't even say that's aggressive. I would say that's just being professionally persistent.
Right.
When you're applying.
That makes a lot of sense. So what golden nuggets did you also receive from her?
Well, the job outlook, she said the job outlook is growing, which it is, because anybody who's in hospitality knows we were the hardest hit after COVID, and we're still rebuilding slowly, so it is growing in our market. 75 million boomers retiring by 2030. That's a wild number. And she also gave the tip of connecting with someone at a boomer age and using them as a mentor. I agree. Now, if you don't have someone at a boomer age, or you frankly just want somebody, in a different generation to have as a mentor, that's fine too. But finding a mentor is a common theme. It's huge. It doesn't even have to be sometimes a mentor per se. Like, I have something I call an accountability buddy. Somebody in my career, I have actually two of them, and they're two people outside of my niche that I speak to keep me on track, to vent my frustrations, troubleshoot, and get good advice from. And it's good that they're outside of my niche, because they can give me some good raw advice, and have a different perspective than I might hear from my colleagues in my industry. So I definitely recommend a mentor or an accountability buddy, is what I call mine. That's something that I took from her comments. You also asked, I want you to come back to the screen, because this one I think is a good one. So come on back, Deborah. All right. So this one's big. This is a hard one to say. Okay. Looking back on what would you do differently?
Ah,
She
yeah.
didn't give a cliche answer. She gave a really this is a hard one.
It's a
And
very
leaders don't hey, this is tough. How to handle navigating a family different. I had just like her, I had my daughter when I was 40. My wife is even older. And we navigated our careers and we had our daughter late in life. I don't have any regrets. I love my daughter more than anything. But the fact that we a lot of us feel like we had to wait, that's something that we need to talk about. And then she said, she said, quote, we have to find a way, since the industry is 60% women, we need to support family. And also she mentioned taking care of aging parents, which I am doing right now as well. I have 2 in-laws that live with me that are in their late 70s. There are things that I can't, like, I'm blessed to be able to work from home, and I can I can help with like raising my child and also helping elderly disabled in-laws, right? And she said something, I'm paraphrasing because I didn't write the quote, but it was, there's everything's situational or everything's unique, something along those lines of everybody's story is different, right? And we have to have more grace. And this is going out to leaders who might be listening. And I know that every potential candidate and every student's got to be shaking their head right now because they're about to enter the workforce.
Yeah.
Marsha's right, has to be addressed.
Yeah.
And it's a tough one because you feel on this side of things, when you're talking to leadership, you almost feel nervous to say it, or like, oh, you're putting what's going to be done. But it needs to be said, and I will use my platform to say it. And she's right.
Yeah, it's true. I had to rethink that when I asked that question for her, because I thought, what would I have done differently? I believe that since, students in particular right now are very intimidated to jump in, make a mistake and things like that. I wish I wasn't. I wish I jumped in there sooner, because my first hotel job, it was a hotel, of course, independent hotel. 6 months later, I got fired.
You did what? Wait. You can't say. Wait, why'd you get fired?
Yeah, this was 30 years ago.
Okay, what was it?
I'm still here, but my first job, I was fired 6 months later, and I wish I looked for the lessons to learn. Instead, I was 20 or 19. I just cried. And
it's devastating. But what happened? You can't. You
can share? Oh, yeah. And I was smart enough to go back and say why. Why was I fired? The DOS said it was because I opened up the mail. I don't know what that meant. The GM gave me another answer that, Deborah, you belong more in a corporate setting. I had to search my own answers, and I think it was turned out that, I don't know. Maybe I was a threat to the DOS. I didn't even know what a DOS was.
Okay.
I just knew she was my boss. So I wish I really looked at it as a learning lesson. And ever since then, that's one thing that I did learn. I just wish through that scenario I would have learned. But years later, I finally went, oh, okay, this is what I learned. And
what did you learn?
Well, I learned that I wasn't for that setting, for a small independent. My world was in a different segment of the hospitality industry. I just wish, and I'm sure they had learning lessons to do too, because handling it that way probably should not have been handled that way.
But that's great advice. What you just did right there. Okay, so everybody that's listening,
I wish I shared it more often. It took me years before I admitted. And then when everybody, got furloughed during COVID, I'm like, I've been there, done that.
So that as a recruiter, I'm gonna dig into that a little bit more, and I'll share. I have a few minutes. I had the same situation. I wasn't fired, but I can relate that I went through a job interview process where I literally went 4-step interview process, met all of my coworkers that were supposed to be, met my boss that I was supposed to report to, went in his office, met everything, huh?
And you're thinking,
I got, And then all I had to do was get through a conversation with the VP, the vice president, on a phone call. And after that, nothing happened. It just disappeared. I followed up. I'm a recruiter trying to find out. I'm like, what the hell happened? Right. So, my point is, there's a point. What you just learned is what I learned, right? After going through this and seeing they ghosted me, the recruiter didn't follow up. I didn't say anything crazy in the interview. The only thing I can think of is the way I'm talking to you is how I talk to people. I was too confident, probably, and too just too not obsequious to like leadership. Like it just depends. My point being, it wasn't a fit.
Right.
And you as candidates out there coming from what Deborah went through,
Right.
what I went through, right?
Right.
If it doesn't work out, sometimes you think this is a dream job and they don't like you.
Right.
You just got to brush your shoulders off and truck on, because it's not a fit. There's no way I would want to work for those people right now. If they can't handle me just being myself, I'm going to be hanging out. I'm going to be working with you 10 hours a week. I mean, 10 hours a day, 50-hour work weeks. You're definitely not going to like me if you don't like me in an interview. And like, same with Deborah, like it just wasn't a fit, and that's okay. You find your fit.
But how I knew they didn't handle it right is years later, I met up with the general manager at a conference, and she invited me to lunch. She attended one of my sessions. I think she was like, okay, I might have, handled it a little bit differently today as well. Everybody has their own lesson, their own avenue, their own traveling road in this industry. Yeah. You have to really focus on what is it that you could have done differently? What caused it? What questions do you need to ask? And you have the right to do that because this is your career. So we all have ups and downs, and I had mine my very first hotel job.
But you did learn it. I mean, then like that experience that I had was definitely, you know what I learned from that is the ghosting that I went through. This was before I went firm. So I was a corporate recruiter at the time, working internal. And then after this experience, I went as a headhunter, where I'm doing now. And I am a maniac about follow-up. Candidates, like if you catch me accidentally like missing an email, I will eat humble pie. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Like I'm not going to keep on ghosting you. Like there's no way I would do that to somebody. Like call me out on it. Like it's just not going to happen.
No,
but
I love this saying that Jaden mentions that it's a good mindset. The job description isn't everything. People matter. And you will hear that a lot in this industry, that people come first. That our first interview with David Peckinpah with Merits, his whole culture is about people. And I believe, as we all learn as the days go, I think the students today are getting the good stuff. I think you and I, when we first started, it's like everybody was still learning in the industry. And today, now there's schools that you could go to. Hello, like Grand Valley State University. There's a hospitality school. It wasn't there when I was trying to get into the industry. So this is a very good lesson right here. People do matter in this industry. They really do.
Hospitality. We're a people business.
We are. We are. And then I just want to circle around to Dr. Lori Toma, who a lot of our students are watching today. Hello, everybody. I've met some of you before, and I know Jeremy has too. And she's right. Caring for aging parents that you mentioned earlier is challenging when you are trying to balance a career. And students will end up experiences someday. I thought it would never come for me, but here I am, just like you, at the same time.
And let that be a tip. Sorry to cut you off. I think sometimes people are afraid to put that on a resume,
right?
And when there's like a gap, right? And then like they might be portrayed or perceived as a job hopper. I'm telling you, put it on there. And if an employer doesn't understand or respect that is why you had a gap. I can't tell you what to think. That's your me personally. I wouldn't want to work for that company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't tell you. Every time I tell people where I've worked, they're like, couldn't you keep a job? It's like, No, I kept learning and learning. And you know what? I've heard people say, I've been 23 years with, let's say Marriott or Hilton or something like that. And I'm like, I'm sorry that you had to do that, that you're that way, that you have to be there that long, because every hotel that I have worked for, I have brought what I've learned from Sheraton, from Omni, from Hilton, from Marriott, and I bring it all with me. It makes me a better salesperson, a better leader, a better whatever it is position I'm going into. Has really made a difference for me. So to gloat that you've been with a company 23 years, it's good, but it's not necessary in our industry.
True.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. We're up for, well, we're just getting started. This is going to be an exciting one for you, because I believe students don't even know this exists. And Derek Johnson, who we're going to talk with next, is a fantastic man, very creative. And if you are a creative person, this is going to be right up your alley. So let's sit back and enjoy what our next interviewer has to share.
Here in beautiful Michigan, it's time to start your hospitality and tourism career, because there's no better time
to spin the wheel,
to settle in,
to create something good,
make a splash, to share the flavor,
to brew happiness.
So what are you waiting for?